Hey Digital Photography, we're going to learn about ISO and white balance for this unit. The first thing you need to do with your camera is make sure that you're in full manual mode. Starting next week, we're going to be shooting in full manual mode for the rest of the year. So this is just a little preview of what that's going to look like to get us ready. So make sure that your dial is in manual. Of course, make sure your camera is on. You can go ahead and make sure that your automatic focus is on. And then we're going to go ahead back here to the viewfinder. All right. What I want you to do just right off the bat is go ahead and set your f number to 4.5 and go ahead and just set your shutter speed to 1/60. That's just going to be some settings. It doesn't matter where you are, where you're shooting. We're just going to start at that point. And then I want you to pick something in your house that you're going to take a picture of. Doesn't really matter what it is. You just want to make sure that you're near some good lighting. So near a window, or even if you're outside on your deck or whatever, that's also great. Okay, I'm going to take a picture of this little plant guy. Okay, so what you're going to do once you have those settings is you're going to go ahead and click on the ISO button. Okay, you might be set on auto right now. We're going to set it on 100, and you're going to hit set. And what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and you're going to click take a picture. Okay? Then you're going to go back to your ISO. You're going to click the 200. Go ahead and set it, and you're going to take a picture. Okay? And you're going to keep on doing that for 400, 800, 1600, 3200, and 6400. Don't change any of the other settings. These are always going to stay the same. You're just going to go through all the different ISOs and shoot the same exact picture. Okay? The next thing you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and click on your white balance, which is this button that says WB, and you're going to notice there's a whole bunch of settings here as well. We're going to do the same exact thing. Okay? What I want you to do now, though, is I want you to go ahead and find the correct exposure for whatever the object is that you're shooting. So if I'm going to shoot this right here, I'm going to find the correct exposure by going ahead and reading my meter. Okay, so if I want it to be on the 0, okay, so I can do this by a variety of different ways. I can change my shutter speed to get it there. I can change my aperture potentially to get it there, or I can also change the ISO number to get it there. Okay. One thing about the ISO that you've learned from the videos is that the ISO controls the microchip in your camera to the sensitivity of light. So if I have an ISO of 100, what it's telling me is that I'm outside in a really warm, sunny day, taking my pictures, and my camera is not sensitive to light. So think of the 100 as my microchip is at the least amount of sensitive to light as possible. As I go up on these numbers, you can think about 6400 as I'm shooting in a very, very dark room. There's actually absolutely really no light coming in. And as I get to these smaller numbers, here I'm outside on a cloudy-ish day, or I'm in like the shade. Here, there's a little bit of sun, but maybe it's a little bit overcast. Okay, like I'm inside right now with just a light in my kitchen, so I can go ahead and maybe set that at the 800. Okay, so again, go ahead and focus in on whatever it is that you're going to take a picture of. So I'm going to take maybe a picture of that plant. So I want to try to get my camera at a perfect exposure for this activity. Okay, so go ahead and click on your white balance again. I'm going to set to daylight, set it, take a picture. Okay. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go to white balance, go to shade, take a picture, same picture. Don't change any of the other settings. Go to cloudy, take a picture. Go to tungsten light, take a picture. Go to white fluorescent light, take a picture. You don't need to worry about flash or custom. Don't do anything with those. Just these 5 right here. We're going to take the same picture using all those different settings, making sure that these settings stay the same and that you're at about perfect exposure for that picture. Okay, so that's what I want you to do, and I'm going to show you on my iPad what those pictures are actually looking like. It's going to be the microchip to your camera, and it is a way to get correct exposure depending on where you are located, if it is sunny or shady or cloudy or dark. Okay, so I shot this with quite a bit of light coming in from the window to my right. So this shows an ISO of 100. Watch what happens as I make my camera more sensitive to the light. So if this is ISO 100, this is ISO 200, this is ISO 400, this is ISO 800, this is ISO 1600, this is ISO 3200. So you can see how by making my camera more sensitive to the light with that microchip with the ISO, my picture's exposure is continuously getting lighter and lighter and lighter. Okay, so it just goes to tell you that if I'm shooting in a nice sunny room, I do not want to make my microchip or my ISO really sensitive to the light, or you're going to have a picture that's super overexposed. Okay, I would want to have an ISO that was somewhere around 100 to 200, okay, 400 at the max. Okay, so that's your ISO. Now we're going to go into white balance here. Okay, this was my first picture taken with white balance, and that would have been the daylight setting. Okay, and you can see white balance has to do with the color of the light. It balances the color of the light. So if you're in a place like a school, for example, where you have a lot of fluorescent lighting and you want to balance that color out, you would want to set your white balance to white fluorescent light. If you're in an area where the lighting is really yellow, then you would want to use the tungsten light setting to balance out that yellow, and it will make your light look white. So this shot that I took is using the daylight white balance, and you can see the color looks perfect, right? Let's go to the next setting, which would be shade, right? You don't see, you see a little bit of difference there. You can see how much more yellow the tablecloth is looking, because I really wasn't shooting in the shade. I was shooting with a lot of sunlight, okay? My next one is cloudy. That one looks very similar to shade, right? My next setting would be tungsten, right? Look at how blue it is. Because tungsten light is yellow, when it goes to balance it out, it balances it out with the blue. Okay? Unless you're trying to get that kind of light shot, that would not be the appropriate white balance to choose. And then my last one is white fluorescent lighting, and you can see that also not quite as blue, but still too blue for what I would want. Okay, so white balance has to do with balancing out the color of your light. And you can see that I would have wanted something with the daylight setting here, which would have been perfect, which makes a lot of sense because I was shooting with a lot of daylight in the room. So what I want you to go ahead and do is try out that activity to really get an understanding of exposure, of ISO, and of white balance, so that next week we can move on to shooting in full manual mode.